Hey gang, Chef Leah from Extraordinary Artists and Table Eat Marketplace in Old Town Temecula, and our awesome partners MSJC and Rancho Family Medical Group. And this is Cooking Essentials with an emphasis on health and wellness. And who could be a better person to have with us on this segment around baking and health and wellness than Dr. Susan Behnawa.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Did I pronounce your name right?
Perfectly. Which is nice. I'll take whatever. I'll take anything in the vicinity, but that was spot on.
Okay, so what is another name you've been called, or pronunciation for Behnawa?
I've gotten banana, Behnawa, Benihana, and kind of everything in between.
Dr. Banana?
Oh yeah, I've
gotten
that's
it. Hysterical, yeah. Dr. Benihana.
And I think it's so kind because our patients will really try, and I'm honestly, you can call me Dr. B. It's totally fine. I'm not worried about it at all.
That is excellent.
Yeah.
I love that.
We just have such great patients. I love them. I'm obsessed with our patients.
Well, that's a good place to be, being obsessed with your patients. I'm obsessed with the people I cook for, so I can absolutely relate to that.
And we both share an obsession with food, and so I'm so excited to be here speaking with you today just about nutrition and wellness and overall health.
Good food. It's my sister in good food.
Yes.
I love it. All right, so Dr. Behnawa, you are a geriatrician?
Yes.
Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, so basically a geriatrician is a physician who's trained in primary care. So you can become a geriatrician through the path of family medicine or internal medicine. You're board certified in primary care, but then you actually do an additional subspecialization in geriatric medicine. So what geriatric medicine is it's looking at health in the older adult, how as we age our body responds to medications differently, how the natural course of disease affects our health over time. And really I think the biggest thing about geriatric medicine is the focus on preventative health, wellness, and longevity. And so that's what I really enjoy to implement in my practice.
So you're working with the elders in our community.
Yes.
I love that. And I hear you have a special, you have a different name for elders in our community, something about birthdays or?
Oh yeah, so we like to joke that as we collect more birthdays, our approach to health has to change a little bit. So I think that for our older adults, a lot of our patients are very, very healthy. Sometimes I joke that they're healthier than me. And so ultimately what we see as a common thread throughout patients who are really enjoying life is that they have a huge focus on what they're doing day to day, moment to moment to own their health. And so that's really nice to see.
That's super powerful, owning your health.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we've really seen a frame shift in medicine where we used to be very paternalistic. Take this medication, do this test, do these things. And it was very much almost an assumption that you're going to do what the doctor says. And now we have so much more of a collaborative approach to health where we're working together with our patients. Knowledge is so easily accessible that we're having conversations. And so I always tell my patients is I make suggestions and you make decisions. So it's my job to tell you what the research shows and how we can support your health, but we're never going to force you to do anything. At the end of the day, it's your body, your health, your comfort, and no one knows your body better than yourself.
Sure, and that is empowering right then and there, because I think so many, I think as you know, I cook for about 100, well, from Great Plates, they call it seniors in our community, but I always go back to our elders because I have profound respect for our elders in our community. So these are community members that I get to cook for. And I've learned so much about their different body types and different things they're going through, from kidney failure to diabetes. Oh my gosh, there's so much of the diabetes.
Yes.
Heart patients, I need to be on a low inflammation diet, chef. Brain health, I'm not as clear. Can you help me with that? Inflammation, my joints hurt.
Right.
And then diverticulitis, which I've never really known how to cook for. So, I mean, I know that a lot of these different diseases and way you're feeling can affect anybody from like 18 up, right? Or
right, absolutely. I think across the life spectrum, even in little babies, like you put them on, something. Babies who are nursing, if there's something in mom's milk that they don't agree with, they might have GI upset. We have moms that have to do dairy elimination, or even babies that respond to formulas differently. And so I think, gut health from the first moment of life to the very last moment of life, it's
amen,
such an important
sister. Sorry, I have to just amen to that. Gut health. So please,
And so I think that we don't really think about what we're putting in our bodies much more beyond, does this taste good? But the actual components of food, you have to keep in mind that these things are going into your body is processing them, digesting them, absorbing them, and they actually make the literal fabric of who you are, your tissues, your bones, your muscles. And I think that focusing on that and realizing that you literally are what you eat, it really has a profound impact on overall health.
Food is your medicine.
Exactly, yes. And
I
I think
love
we
that.
forget because we've become
Well, it's easy to forget in today's society with
Yes.
everything we're bombarded with, right?
Absolutely.
Social media, TV news. I mean, just even like the harshness right now in our current political reality, just, you know, everybody just seems to be so at odds. So you're bombarded with all of this.
Right.
And then it does, don't you feel that it affects your health too?
Absolutely.
Like your brain health?
The mind-body connection is real, and it goes both ways. So what you're consuming, whether that's food, media, entertainment, news, these are all forms of consumption. And we've become such an electronic society, and especially in quarantine and isolation, where for your literal physical health, you have to distance from people for everybody's safety. I think it's really interesting because we think we're doing the right thing by sitting in a room and watching TV for hours on end. But I think when you look at, you know, what you're trying to accomplish is keeping everybody healthy, keeping everybody safe. But that doesn't mean binge watching TV. You know, you can still walk around in your home, you can still go outside and garden, and yes, move. I think we forget to move, and that's a really big deal.
Absolutely, and it is important to move. You must move. You must think about what you're eating beyond. You said something that's really just so powerful. Like we almost forget that it's once it hits the palate, we're eating for what tastes good, maybe not what
Serves us, what nourishes our body.
us.
Absolutely. And it's hard because when you look at, you know, a lot of people will say, I want to lose weight, and you're losing the forest for the trees. Because the biggest concern that we have as physicians when our patients maybe have some extra weight to lose is we're thinking about the body systems, the strain on the heart, on the arteries, the blood pressure, the brain. We're not thinking about the cosmesis of it per se, but when you look at the weight loss industry as a whole, they're really kind of focusing on, well, what's the quick fix? Take this pill, take this shake, take this supplement. And that's a completely backwards message to send, because ultimately what you do to move towards health and move towards a better place for your body is you have to be able to sustain it. I always tell my patients, if you're trying to lose weight and get healthier, what you do to get there will have to be what you continue to do to stay there. So make sure it fits your body.
It's really hard for me just to sit here. Like I just want to get up and jump. Like I want to get up and just start jumping up and down because it's so exciting to hear a doctor talk about this and to use the word sustainability within how we care for our doctors.
Yes.
I'm just totally geeking out right now. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So I just, for clarification for those watching that maybe wouldn't know the terminology around, you said
cosmesis. So what the body
Cosmesis.
looks like. And so we're so fixated on external appearance in our society, which is fine. That's our first impression of each other. That's how we get along with people. But I think that people have,
they get obsessed.
yes, an unnecessary fixation on that versus the inward health of the body, which is ultimately what's going to get you to 70, 80, 90 and beyond is the internal health of the body.
But it comes out in your skin too.
It does.
Like you have such beautiful skin. It's like just what you're putting in your gut.
I think for what we forget is food, sleep, and stress. Those three, they're so important, and you can't have one without balancing all three. I think that that's what our patients forget a lot of the time.
I absolutely agree with that. I have a new saying because when I have finally noticed what happens to my body at 50 when I get really stressed out.
Yes.
So what I have now, what I share with everyone at work, if you raise my cortisone level, you're going to be over there. You don't get to be in my planet when you raise my cortisol level because it's not worth it to be stressed out.
Right.
I mean, just my cognitive ability goes to, goes to hell. My gut starts to act up.
Right.
My digestion isn't on. And one of the first things that you had talked about was that keeping a healthy gut, like your flora,
Right.
that gut flora is so important. And wouldn't you agree, or this is, again, I'm not a doctor, right? I cook for a living. And I think about food all the time. And I think about how food affects your gut and how then your gut supports not just every organ and your brain health, but then how that affects your immunity to fight disease. And as we're coming into the fall season, and even with COVID, everything that's going on, does your gut in fact support your immunity?
Absolutely. We have such good evidence that shows that when you have a good, what we call a microbiome, which is basically an area of the body that contains certain types of living organisms, your gut is its own microbiome. And
it's a beautiful forest, right?
It is. It absolutely is, which is kind of a weird way to think about it. But you'll see patients who have been on chronic antibiotics long-term for other medical conditions, and they're just ill. And if you can restore that, they do so much better. We're learning a lot more and we're understanding a lot more. I think even in the last several decades as physicians, how much of a role the gut flora contains. And so I routinely recommend different types of probiotics to my patients for different types of medical conditions. If you can get it from food, like fermented kombucha, or even if you can tolerate dairy, if you can do yogurt, it's so much more beneficial. But if you're somebody who can't really do those things, even taking a well-researched probiotic supplement has a lot of good data behind it. And so I think that it's something that we're starting to understand more. Is we have tried to sterilize ourselves almost from the inside out, for lack of a better way to put it.
Well, we got lost, didn't we? Like we've been lost, and we're
absolutely.
coming out of this mire into what is healthy and clean.
I think we're remembering that, our medicines all came from plants to start with. We're natural beings. We're supposed to be outside. We're supposed to be eating real food that actually looks like food. And that's, I think, the beginning of an amazing revolution where we're trying to take our health back from how we thought we were supposed to be eating. We get fed this mantra of, eat a low-fat diet, eat certain amounts of servings of carbohydrates a day, eat, certain processed foods, certain supplements, and it didn't serve our bodies. And what we're seeing is just astounding rates of type 2 diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and you're trying to look and see, well, where did it all go wrong? Where's the breakdown? And when you really get back down to the basics, good, clean, real food that serves the body, not too much and not too often, that's mostly where you find success.
Say that last part again, not too
much and not too often.
Absolutely. It's funny, I used to be very involved with school gardens in Temecula. I still am a little bit, but I helped to kickstart in 2006 about 26 garden programs in our elementary and our middle schools. I know, right?
Yeah.
And because you see these littles, I always say, here's our littles and here's our elders, and we seem to get lost on both when it comes to good, clean, and fair food. And everyone would just stop and they're like, what is good, clean, and fair food, and what do you mean by that? It's, what do you mean by good, clean food?
So what I mean is, and I always tell my patients this, is don't overcomplicate it. You want to be eating really simple foods. It's hard because we have this sense that our food should be exciting and we should be eating, a different meal every day of the week and exposing our family to different cuisines. And I tell my patients, I want your food to be boring and your life to be exciting. I want you to pick a few things that are really easy, especially in the middle of a busy week, and just make it really simple. And so, examples of things that we like to do is we'll just keep frozen cauliflower rice in the freezer. So we'll stir fry that really quickly, some frozen vegetables. We'll usually do a protein, either a chicken or something for my kids. And I think just trying to keep food simple. So I always tell my patients, don't focus on what you can't have or what you shouldn't be eating. Focus on getting the things you need first and let the rest follow. And so my patients will ask me, well, what kind of diet should I eat? I say, well, first of all, I don't want you to think of the word diet because I hate that word. What does that mean? A diet means
Absolutely.
something that you're kind of white knuckling to force yourself to eat a certain way.
Yeah.
So what you say is, what does your way of eating looks like? You really want to start with focusing on your vegetable intake. So you want to be doing a lot of, cucumbers, asparagus, lots of lettuce, some tomatoes, Brussels sprouts, all of these things. Above ground vegetables are lower carb, below ground vegetables or root vegetables, maybe a little bit higher carb, but they have so many different health benefits that you still want to incorporate them. Start there, do your protein. If you can tolerate dairy, keep your dairy, nuts, olive oil. Really, really limit the sugar, flour, processed foods. Start with the food that you can.
Okay. This is what I call a power tip. Power tip. Say that again. So lower, but I say eliminate, but lower.
So what we work on is really trying to reduce your intake of your sugar, flour, and processed foods. These foods are very, very inflammatory in the body.
They're inflammatory, and they also inhibit the connection of some vitamins into your body. Sugar will actually block vitamin C.
Yeah.
So understand what you're doing when you eat processed foods, and what Dr. Behnawa is sharing with us. This is a huge power tip.
Yeah, and so the problem is when you think of our society, we're all busy. Nobody has time for anything. And so that's the excuses that we make.
I was going
to
say, but don't you think that's such a huge excuse?
Absolutely, because if you think about the time it takes you to go into the drive-thru and get this food and take it home and serve it to your family or your children, you can just as easily pop into the grocery store, pick up a rotisserie chicken, some boiled eggs, and a bagged salad. And so you're looking at keeping yourself accountable. And I think that one of the biggest barriers that we have to clean, healthful eating is the excuses that we make for ourselves. And I think that the thought work around food is something that's so conflicting to our patients' emotions. You don't want to look at why you're stress eating. It's easier to eat until you're not stressed anymore than to stop and say, hey, why am I stressed? Why am I rooting through the pantry at 10 o'clock at night?
Absolutely.
And so I think that for a lot of our patients, especially now with COVID, people joke about, oh, I've gained the COVID-19. But this is a real thing. Our stress response and blunting that stress response with overeating, that's a real thing because you're trying to make all of these bad emotions go away.
It's also trauma. It's trauma eating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if you look at your body, you're either existing in a rest and digest or a fight or flight. When you're stressed, you basically are in this fight or flight place. It's very uncomfortable for the body. Your heart rate is up, you're nervous and you don't know why, you can't really figure out. And so what a lot of people do is they'll overeat to force themselves into rest and digest because it's a more comfortable place to be than feeling stressed out.
That has to be on a subconscious level.
Absolutely. And it's something that we joke about, the primitive brain. It's the brain that I want, I need, I have to have. It's not the I know better and I should do X, Y, and Z. That's your evolved brain. The primitive brain is all about urges, and that's where the desire to overeat comes from. A lot of the time you're not even aware of it.
But you can train your brain, right? I mean, you absolutely with, I know when we're eating keto, it raises your, what are they called again? Oh my goodness. With eating keto, and you actually take the test.
Oh, your ketone levels?
Your ketones,
bodies,
right?
yes.
Because your brain loves ketones.
Right.
I'm learning about this. I mean, I've been baking, cooking keto for probably 5 years, and then paleo about like 12 years.
Right.
Like I get it, but I'm also very careful when it comes to no, you can't go eat 5 steaks, a pound of bacon, and a bunch of cream. That is not keto. That's not what we're talking
absolutely.
about. You have stressed. Again, these are all power tips. Real food.
Right.
You can take your health back. I'm just now quoting a really powerful, awesome woman. Serve your body. Don't overcomplicate. Keep things simple. And then Dr. Behnawa is talking also about keeping us accountable. So with keeping us accountable, I want to stress to all of the young cooks or members of our community that are taking this course that want to enter the culinary field or hospitality field, even home cooks and anybody out there that is cooking. when you're cooking for yourself, your family, and our elders within our community, within your household, you really want to, you have an obligation to what you're putting on their plate. You have an obligation to what you are feeding your community around you. And all of these power tips from Dr. Behnawa will help you in how you can better serve your community through cooking.
Right.
Because cooking is such a joy. It's such a beautiful gift, right?
Yes.
But understanding everything that we're talking about right now can help you keep your community healthy.
Right. And I don't think we're asking anybody to go from 0 to 100%. We're not expecting you to, overhaul your whole life. What we're hoping for is accountability.
Damn you, overhaul your whole life right now. You must do it.
Yeah, and I think that it has to be a choice. You have to decide, yes, I'm going to show up for myself, for my body, and for my family.
Hallelujah. It does have to be a choice.
And I think that unless you're in that mind space where you're ready for that, we call it the stages of change in medicine.
Okay, I love
so
that.
There's pre-contemplation, where you're absolutely not, no way, I don't need any of this. Then there's contemplation, where you're thinking, hey, maybe I might benefit from this.
Okay.
Then there's preparation, where you've made the decision you're going to do it and you're just figuring out how to do it. Then you have action, where you're actually making the change. And then maintenance, where you're doing it and you're doing it the rest of your life. And so I think that understanding where
I had
you
to take a deep breath just because you were talking about change, and I'm all for this, but I even caught myself going, okay, what am I going to have to do?
And so I think that you have to know where you are in that spectrum. If you're in pre-contemplation, nothing I say will ever sink in. This is and I love him to death, my husband. If he's in pre-contemplation.
Sorry, honey.
And he's a physician as well. But nothing I say to him, unless he's ready to hear it, kind of gets through. And then my favorite thing is, so we've been talking about intermittent fasting, which I love and I'm such a huge proponent of. And
Click.
so when cheers. Cheers to intermittent fasting.
We're
Cheers
intermittent
to
fasting right now
we
today.
are. Cheers to the clean fast. And so when I brought up this, concept to him, he's like, well, that sounds, I wouldn't, whatever, brushes it off. About a year later, circles back to me after I had been intermittent fasting for quite some time, and he goes, hey, you know what's great? This intermittent fasting thing. And I'm just looking at this man, and I'm like, you're lucky that you're cute, because otherwise we would have a problem.
True story. Yesterday, or yesterday or the day before, my 18-year-old Miss Gabrielle, who I love so much, she's probably going to be ticked I'm sharing this right now, but I have for years been like, intermittent fast with me, do partial fast, I won't do it, right? This, and she's lived with me. I've been a chef her whole life. This kid has grown up in kitchens. She's grown up in slow food, on farms. And so she finally did a fast the other day for, is it Yom Kippur that we just had? Anyway, I hope I didn't just mess that up, but my daughter's, past in her heritage, so she's fasting for this. Yeah. And she looked at me, she's like, now I know why you do it. I feel amazing. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I love that.
Come here, I want to strangle your cuteness out of you.
And it's so funny because I think that, especially when people are used to us, it's hard to hear it. But then if it gets through from another avenue, they're so much more receptive, which is interesting.
That is so true.
And so I always say, just keep talking. Yeah. Eventually it'll, it'll percolate in the back somewhere and it'll come to fruition eventually. But you did bring up an excellent point that I wanted to touch on, is we don't have a lot of studies for intermittent fasting in children who are not, puberty age or beyond. Okay. And
Fantastic.
So I typically tell my patients I'm family medicine by background, so you really don't want your young kids fasting beyond more than a 12-hour window. So dinner is at 8 p.m. and then they have breakfast the next day, but you want them to follow their body's cues. And I think that's so important for kids because we think they should have breakfast and then morning snack and then lunch and then afternoon snack and then dinner and then maybe bedtime snack. This is so much food that we're constantly exposing our kids to.
No, you're right. And I do want to say this is so important. Please check in with your doctor on anything like this. I will actually tell you that I did check in with a doctor when I was with Gabrielle, who I think was 14 at the time.
Yeah.
And my doctor was absolutely not. She
Yeah.
should not be doing that.
Kids
Now
need
at
to
18,
grow.
it's fine, but please check in with your doctor before, and don't just get on the internet and start searching what you should do. Check in
Yes.
with Dr. B.
That's what we're here for. We're here to keep you healthy and keep things safe.
Yeah.
And so I think that for, you look back, even back to a generation ago, oh no, don't snack on that, you'll spoil your dinner. We never think about spoiling our
Oh, I
dinner
heard.
nowadays. Yeah, they always tell you.
No drinking while you're eating. You might fill
Yeah.
up on your water or lemonade or whatever
Right.
it was.
Yeah, and so it's so funny because back in the day, in between meals, the kitchen was closed. Now, not only is the kitchen always open, but you have to have a pantry, and it has to be in clear bins a certain way, and the kids' snacks have to be accessible on the lower level. I mean, honestly, it's, I think, ridiculous how much access we have to food, and it's such an important blessing,
Yeah.
but it's something that we have to be careful with as well. And so I think for our children, it's funny because you'll be so focused on yourself as a parent, how I'm going to eat healthy, and then you might get home and throw some frozen chicken nuggets in the microwave, and that's your kids' dinner. Well, why can't your kids
hear
eat
it.
what you're eating?
I hear it time and time
Yeah.
again.
And I think it's hard because again, it's that conversation that you're telling yourself, I'm tired, I had a long day at work, I don't have the energy for this. It doesn't take that much more time to, get your kids used to what you're eating and just have them eat what you're eating and sit with them and have that moment. I think it's so important and it's so overlooked.
It's absolutely important. And I know that we have to wrap it up,
Oh,
but there's so much joy with gathering around the table or gathering around the kitchen counter as you're prepping food. And you can
Yes.
create, Dr. B is saying create. Can I call you that? I
Of
now have a
course,
nickname
yes,
for you.
Absolutely.
Who am I anyway?
Yeah. Let your
but-
kid chop the mushrooms. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if they're exactly the right size, they'll be cooked. And there's so much good evidence to show that kids are so much more apt to consume the meal if they've had a hand in preparing it as well.
100%. I've seen it. I'm witness to it, and I absolutely concur. It's really important to gather around. You can meal plan for the whole week, and it can be more accessible then for the kids and others that you're cooking for. But before we close, because this could go on for hours. This is such an amazing conversation. So Dr. B and I just have to get together again. And then we can actually talk about coffee, because there was a whole conversation we had earlier around even your coffee, and knowing what's in your coffee is a proponent of cognitive health and inflammation, because you want to keep the mold out of your coffee. We were
Right.
talking about that.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to go off on that topic. So something that maybe a lot of us wouldn't know about a doctor here at Rancho Family Medical Group is that she cares. She's very passionate about your health and your microbiome. How do we
My
put it?
microbiome.
Your microbiome. Like, I'm all about the microbiome.
Yes.
Okay, so I know we need to wrap it up, but one of the great things that Dr. B brought up was your microbiome, right? And inflammation and all different things, and how food and simple foods can affect your health. So right after this, I'm going to make a really simple bread 2 different ways, and I'm going to ask you to make it at home and let us know what you think.
I have my thing. So when I was in 2nd grade, I was convinced that I wanted to be a hairdresser, and I wouldn't let anybody tell me otherwise. And I even had a book, I Want to Be a Beautician, wrote it myself, illustrated it, and I feel like that's my backup career. If I ever leave medicine, which I probably won't, but you can come with me for.
She does
come
have
for me.
bomb diggity hair, I might just
You
say.
can come see me for a hairdo if I ever figure out how to do that.
I'm going to go see her for a hairdo.
And in the meantime, I'll take care of the rest of your body.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you for having
As
me.
we're
This has
social
been great.
distancing in this
Yes.
in our talk today, but I'm so appreciative of how passionate you are about what you do, and I'm hoping that all of you are just as appreciative. And we are going to list a lot of what I call my power tips that all came from Dr. B today. So you just go to the link for this class and you'll see all of her tips. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dr. B.